Ben Johnson finally gave us some concrete answers on a few of the Chicago Bears' biggest question marks that we were pretty sure about, but didn't know for certain.
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Bears, and I'm your host, Lauren Cox. I'm here to bring you your daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. You can follow me on Twitter at CoxSports1, and you can follow the podcast at Locked On Bears on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and the Locked On Bears YouTube channel, where you can keep up with all of our video podcasts as well. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Mazda. Just like there's more to every player, more dedication, more attention to detail, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Stay tuned later in the episode for highlights in this week's Mazda Moving the Game Forward. On the show today, I want to bring you the latest from Halas Hall with Ben Johnson, providing us some key updates. First of all, on Jaylon Johnson. We heard from Jaylon Johnson himself, but also the head coach about what the injury even is and how he's coming along and what that means for week one, where never say never, but probably not week one, which seems to be about, they're keeping tabs on it and they're not ruling it out, but it sounds to me like when you read between the lines that maybe not right away for week one. But we do know who the left tackle will be for week one. Ben Johnson confirming Braxton Jones will be the starter there and give us some good explanation as to why they're rolling in that direction, at least to begin this 2025 season. And finally, we'll wrap up with a look at the Bears' announced team captains. And I think it's notable, a couple of new faces taking over as team captains and a couple of players who were team captains in the past, no longer team captains in lieu of some of those new players coming in. And I'm interested to see what that says about how this roster has changed and where this team stands now. But I think the biggest, most impactful, lingering question ahead of week one is, will Jaylon Johnson be able to play? He didn't participate in all of training camp or the preseason, dealing with what was a quote-unquote soft tissue injury, but the Bears weren't really forthcoming on what that included. All throughout the process, they kind of just said a soft tissue thing. Well, now it was more formally revealed through Jaylon Johnson himself. And I guess it's valid to have waited and let him decide to be the one to say, but it was a groin injury that Jaylon Johnson had been dealing with, something that he evidently referred to as a kind of a freak accident during training, when he was working this offseason on, guarding receivers and their releases off the line of scrimmage. Evidently something happened and he suffered what he called a pretty bad groin injury that kind of cost him all this time. And so Jaylon Johnson said he's trying to get cleared to return to practice like as soon as today, but having missed the last couple of months, it's hard to know, will he be ready to play? And if so, what he can actually handle, because that'll be, 6 actual days, not even 6 days of practice, but just 6 days from, Tuesday, as he made this quote, to game day next Monday night, is not a lot of time for a player to get ready. Now, if there's any player on this Bears roster that you feel like you could trust without having a lot of preparation, it's probably Jaylon Johnson. But I don't know, for me, if it's less about he needs to be out there, learning Dennis Allen's defense better, and more about physically how well is he going to hold up against someone like Justin Jefferson, for example, at wide receiver in week one. And I know they traded for Adam Thielen. They have a little more receiver talent in Minnesota now, despite Jordan Addison being suspended for the first however many games of this upcoming season. And so it's it's not a question of not only what kind of game shape will he be in, but also if he's not 100% or if he's not in game shape, is there a re-injury risk there? That's one of the things Ben Johnson talked about. He was asked, I'm not going to play the clip here, but he was asked, what you need to see from Jaylon Johnson to be confident in him. And he's the main thing is re-injury risk, right? You want him to be as physically, healthy and ready to go as possible and not feel like you're risking tweaking that groin any further and then having him miss even more time. And so I think that's the first and most important consideration is, what is the re-injury risk of him going out there? And then if that's high, then maybe you say it's not worth it for 1 week. If another week of recovery can lower that re-injury risk significantly, then yeah, maybe you sit him out for this game and have him come back against the Lions in week 2 or whatever it might work to get a longer season from him than if you had to rush it too early. But then there's then there's the secondary factor of how well his stamina will be, and just what quality, what version of Jaylon Johnson do you get if he's not 100%? Are you getting 80% Jaylon Johnson? Are you getting 60% Jaylon Johnson? And then you kind of have to ask yourself, okay, is 60% quality Jaylon Johnson, whatever capacity that is, and I'm not saying 60% of the snaps, I just mean his physical ability, if his physical tools are at 60%, is that still your best starting cornerback option? Is Nahshon Wright at 100% better than Jaylon Johnson at 60%? Maybe. I think if Jaylon Johnson's at 80%, then maybe 80% Jaylon Johnson is probably still better than Nahshon Wright, given the struggles we saw Nahshon Wright have this preseason. And so that's one of the tricky considerations here, and something that I don't think we're going to get a super concrete answer on. I was going to say until they take the field on Sunday morning, but I actually think we might get it a little bit earlier than that. And it's not necessarily going to come from an announcement by the Chicago Bears, but perhaps from a practice squad call up. As we talked about last week on the podcast, during the season, on game day, you can take 2 players on your practice squad and temporarily add them to your active roster just for game day, and then send them back to the practice squad. And each player you can only do that with twice per season. So if you do it more than twice with a guy, or after you've done it twice with the same player, he can't be called up anymore. And the Bears have veteran cornerback Trey Flowers on their practice squad, who had been with the team during training camp in the preseason. They signed Trey Flowers when Jaylon Johnson was injured as sort of a backup plan in case Jaylon Johnson was going to be injured. And so I think we will get a sense of their confidence level in Jaylon Johnson's ability based on whether or not they then call up Trey Flowers from the practice squad or leave him down there. Because right now the Bears have 7 cornerbacks on the active roster. Jaylon Johnson, Tyreek Stevenson, Kyler Gordon, then Nahshon Wright, Josh Blackwell, Nick McLeod, and they added Jaylon Jones off of waivers. So they shouldn't necessarily need an 8th cornerback in Trey Flowers, but if Jaylon Johnson isn't going to be able to go, then maybe they call up Trey Flowers for a week or 2 while Johnson is still recovering, and then otherwise, you can leave him on the practice squad for the rest of the year, or however you want to approach that. So we might know a little bit in advance of kickoff, but I suspect the way this will go is that regardless of, maybe even regardless of what they do with the practice squad, or especially if they don't call up Trey Flowers in the practice squad, that Jaylon Johnson will want to warm up and be a true game time decision. They're going to need to see how the groin feels. I keep saying Sunday on Monday night, right? The 2 hours before kickoff, get him out on the field, have him run around up there and kind of see how things feel, and then probably make the call from there. I mean, inactives are due 90 minutes before kickoff, so that's probably when we'll find out. But I could see them keeping Jaylon Johnson active, playing him a little bit, but not playing him every snap. That maybe he takes a drive off here or there, or maybe alternates drives with Nahshon Wright or whatever it might be, so that he doesn't need to be out there for all 80 snaps or whatever, however long the game ends up going there. So maybe he'll be active either way, and then they'll kind of just feel it out as the game goes on. Regardless, finally, a concrete injury update on Jaylon Johnson after we've been kind of wondering for so long what it was or how long it might ultimately affect them. Even more concrete, the official naming of a starting left tackle, Braxton Jones, as expected. But we heard from Ben Johnson about why Braxton Jones and what they're looking to see from him as the week 1 starting left tackle. We'll hear from head coach Ben Johnson coming up next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by Mazda, and this is Mazda's Moving the Game Forward, brought to you by those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it, because these moments do more than win. They push what's possible. They remind us to go that extra yard, shift into that extra gear, and keep the game moving forward, just like the Bears tried to this offseason. All about moving forward and going farther towards victory with hiring a coach like Ben Johnson and going out and adding playmakers like Colson Loveland and Luther Burden in the draft. It's been all about going for it no matter what and going all in on building around this team. And that to me is what makes this team exciting and what helps push this forward. And when you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. Locked On Bears is also brought to you by Supply House. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your new doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. You can always get next-day delivery if you need parts fast for a project, and their part finder tools and 3D schematics can save you hours on jobs where every detail matters. Join their free Trademaster program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use our promo code SHNFL5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com, promo code SHNFL. Real people, real service. Braxton Jones is the Chicago Bears starting left tackle as expected. Not a surprise, but a final confirmation from Braxton Jones, or from Ben Johnson, that will be the plan for week one. And I can hear Chicago Bears fans groaning and bemoaning and worrying about what that's going to mean. But I'm confident that among players currently under contract by the Chicago Bears, this is their best option. And realistically, it has been the plan all along, because it was on this very podcast that I had plenty of people in the comment section on YouTube and on social media a little critical of me in there when I early declared this left tackle battle was over on August 14th. And on that August 14th podcast, I said, Braxton Jones will be your week one starting left tackle. And everybody said, well, what about Ozzie Trapillo? And what about Karan Amagashi? And what about now Theo Bennett's getting first team reps? Seems like they're trying to do everything they can to not make Braxton Jones their starting left tackle. And I said, no, Braxton Jones is going to be your week one starting left tackle. And 3 weeks later, here we are. Just like we said in early August, Braxton Jones is your starting left tackle because he's always been the favorite to win that job. And we reached a point there where it felt like a hot take to think Braxton Jones would be the left tackle, which is crazy because he's been a 3-year starter in the NFL, not an elite one by any means, maybe not even a great one, but it was like him versus a rookie versus an undrafted free agent versus a super, super raw former third round pick. Like, probably going to take the veteran there. And the veteran's probably going to give you the best chance to win. Like, if none of those other guys were emerging by the middle of August, this was always going to be Braxton Jones' job, because we knew that Braxton Jones was coming off of an injury and that he wasn't 100% recovered from that injury at the start of training camp. He practiced, he played in games, and he's still not 100% recovered from that injury. Ryan Poles admitted as such on an interview over the weekend, I think, or was it late last week? Like, the Bears have yet to see the best version of Braxton Jones yet this season. But each day and each practice, he's kind of slowly getting better and better, slowly getting his legs under him and more comfortable back up closer to full game shape, strength, conditioning, ability. Just like we talked about Jaylon Johnson, how it just kind of takes time to build that up. It's taken a lot of time for Braxton Jones to be able to build that up. But as we heard Ben Johnson say it at his press conference on Tuesday, like, they're seeing that improvement from Braxton Jones. And like, clearly the advantage in this battle was that he's the veteran who really knows what he's doing. And the rookie and second year guys were at too much of a deficit, really, in, I think, the mental aspect of the game. Here's how the head coach explained it.
What did Braxton show you these past couple of weeks that led him to get the opportunity in week one?
He knows what he's doing. Is it perfect every play? No, it's not. But we did see the execution go up over the course of the last few weeks. And so there is a trust level in him knowing what to do. And we think that he's going to continue to ascend the more reps that he gets.
Do you think that adding another player to the left tackle mix, did that sort of light a fire under Braxton when Theo was getting some of those ones reps? Did you see his competition?
I mean, I think competition is good for everybody, but you'd have to ask him if it lit a fire on him. I think all these guys are highly competitive as is and highly motivated to come in, do well for themselves, but also for their team. So I don't know that necessarily had anything to do with it, but like I said, I think the more reps that Braxton gets, the better off he's going to be.
I think some of those same reasons why they're starting Braxton Jones now in week 1 is also part of why they haven't been more committal to him in the longer term for the season. Why they keep talking about, well, he's going to start week 1, and then we'll kind of see from there. Because just as we see Braxton Jones getting seemingly physically better each week as he kind of recovers a little bit more, so too can we see, not guaranteed to see, but we can also then at the same time see the younger offensive tackles get more, mentally prepared, mentally better in that regard. To see Ozzie Trapillo get more and more comfortable in the NFL, to get Theo Benedict more and more comfortable at left tackle, or Karan Amagaji more and more comfortable. And like each week at practice, those guys are still going to be pushing for their opportunities to potentially take over as a starting left tackle. And there's still going to be opportunities for those guys to emerge and show that they deserve to play. And we could see a situation at some point where, Braxton Jones starts, but maybe for a couple of drives, another left tackle gets in there, or they start alternating him over the course of a game just to see, let's check in on how Trapillo's doing. I mean, I know Trapillo's been playing mostly right tackle at practice, so maybe it would be Theo Benedict at this point, but you get the concept, right? Like, this is not a definitive, season-long decision at left tackle. It's, yes, right now, Braxton Jones is the one they can trust the most to know what he's supposed to do and execute it on each play. They know there's some mistakes and some inconsistency in there, but it also seems like the downside that's most fixable, just in terms of more reps, more opportunities to kind of work through whatever physical limitations he might still have. As he gets a little bit healthier, he should continue to get better. And they think the young guys will continue to get better too, but you still got to see it. And it's not a guarantee that happens quickly, or in 1 week, or in 6 weeks, or in 17 weeks. It might be another offseason. We'll just kind of have to see how it goes. It's harder to develop players in season. The growth and development time is training camp in the preseason. You're focused a lot more on technique and fundamentals and improving specific aspects of your game during that portion of the year. Because during the season, each week, all of your attention is how are we going to beat this opponent next week? It's not necessarily, hey, how can we fix Karan Amagaji's footwork this week? Karan's got to work on that on his own, but the coaching staff is hey, how are we stopping their pass rush? It's game plan scheme kind of stuff, not as much individual player development. Yes, that's still important, and they still have coaching points and keys and stuff to work on, but you just don't see as much of that in-season growth from players who are not playing. You grow on the field by playing quite a bit, but it's hard to get a bunch of second-string reps that might be whatever it is, 20 or 30% of the practice reps each practice. It's just harder to get better in season. So I'm not necessarily expecting that by week 6, Trapillo or Bennett or Amagaji will have taken some massive leap forward, but maybe Braxton Jones will just look a little bit more comfortable, and he's not going to be a Pro Bowl left tackle or anything at that point, but maybe, just maybe, he can be good enough for you to get by. And if we go through this season where Braxton Jones is the weakest part of your offensive line and you don't have any other issues anywhere else up front, I think he'll be sitting pretty good up front for Ben Johnson and DeAndre Swift and for Caleb Williams in this offense to execute at a pretty darn high level. It won't be enough to be a real major excuse there for things potentially going wrong. Plus, part of Ben Johnson's job is to scheme that up correctly, even if there is a potential deficiency or inconsistency at that left tackle position. So Braxton Jones will definitely be a player that we watch closely on film each week and kind of check in on how he's doing. And if he doesn't improve and if he struggles more and more, that then at some point maybe one of those younger guys just becomes a better option because you feel like they'll learn on the fly too and maybe get better by being in the game more so than they are on the bench, and you live with them maybe struggling in a couple of games if it's part of the improvement process for them. We'll see. A lot to still judge there. A lot to still judge about the new look leadership of this Bears team as well, where Ben Johnson officially named 5 permanent team captains, plus they'll have 1 weekly rotating team captain as voted on by the players. So we'll take a look at who these leaders of the team are and kind of what it says about how the roster has changed and been built under Ben Johnson compared to, the past regime with Matt Eberflus, next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. The NFL season is right around the corner, and you can feel the buzz. Fantasy football season is here, and everyone's researching, drafting, and building their championship squads. So if you haven't joined a league yet, now's the time, and you're running out of time. It's all happening on Yahoo Fantasy. This year, I'm playing fantasy football on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran creating your millionth league. The season kicks off on Thursday, so now's the time to start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football, which offers so many fun ways to compete. If you want more ways to play, you can try the brand new Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine League mode, where each week the lowest scoring team gets eliminated until only one team is left standing. If you want to play instantly with friends, you can try their new Draft with Friends mode, where you jump right in. Or if you prefer the classics, get your crew together and join a head-to-head private league. Or if you got no crew, that's no problem. Join a public league. That's the easiest way to play. The NFL season kicks off on Thursday, so don't wait. Start your league now. Draft now at yahoofantasy.com/lockedonnfl. That's yahoofantasy.com/lockedonnfl. The Locked On Bears podcast is also brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. The NFL season is almost here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. FanDuel's been a partner with us for a long time here on Locked On, and that's the best offer I've ever seen them give on our podcast network here. So head on over to the FanDuel app and take a look now. You can bet on the Bears versus Vikings week 1 odds there, the money line, the spread, point total, straight up however you want. Plus, still time to get in on Ben Johnson for Coach of the Year, or Caleb Williams NFC North, or Caleb Williams' MVP odds, or the Bears odds to win the NFC North. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. So we've got a starting left tackle. We've got a starting cornerback close to returning, and we've got 5 team captains to start this season, for the duration of the season, I suppose, for this Chicago Bears team. And I don't know that there are any surprises about the guys who did get picked. Like, they all make sense, but then it does leave some of the guys who didn't get picked as interesting choices here. Like, when you think off the top of our head about some of the leaders of the Chicago Bears roster, like, of course, Caleb Williams is going to be a team captain. Like, quarterback, leader of the offense, Caleb Williams is going to be that team guy. But then, like, a couple other names that have been around for a while that weren't team captains this year. And that doesn't mean they were, quote unquote, demoted from team captain to not team captain. You can only pick 5 guys, but it really stands out to me that 2 out of the 5 team captains are players who just got here this offseason under Ben Johnson and Dennis Allen. And one of them is a guy who only got here last offseason. Like, there's not a lot of like long running Chicago Bears on this team captain group, but enough beating around the bush, I suppose. Team captains this year: Caleb Williams, of course, the quarterback. So 2 offense, 2 defense, 1 special teams. Caleb Williams and Joe Thuney, veteran left guard, traded for from the Kansas City Chiefs, already a team captain after having been here for 6 months. Then on defense, Kevin Byard, the veteran safety, who's one of the leaders in the back end, sure. And then Grady Jarrett comes over from the Atlanta Falcons, veteran free agent. Within 6 months, he's a team captain. And then your special teams captain as well is Cairo Santos, the kicker. So then there's still room for a 6th captain here. So, like, all the players that we're about to talk about that aren't included among the team captains here will still likely get opportunities to be team captains over the course of the season. And of course, there's a lot of wiggle room here, because you could name another offensive team captain, you could name a defensive team captain, or you could have some guys be special teams team captains that might not stand out as like one of the faces of the team. They might not play that much on offense or defense, but just being a really good special teams player can be enough to be a special teams captain. Like, for example, somebody like, Daniel Hardy on the defensive line. Wouldn't surprise me if, 6, 8, 12 weeks into the season, he gets to be a team captain for a game as a special teams team captain. But like, some names that jump out at me that aren't team captains here. Cole Kmet was a team captain last season. We think of Cole Kmet as one of the leaders of this Chicago Bears offense, one of the main voices of the Chicago Bears offense. But when you can only pick 2, like, it's not, I don't know that you could make a strong argument for Kmet over Joe Thuney. I mean, maybe, but like, part of the reason they brought in Thuney was for the leadership. Like, obviously he's a Pro Bowl guard, and like, that's the most important thing, but also like this is a guy who's been a winner and been around, successful organizations, and this Bears offensive line lacked a voice and a leader there. And it's very clearly Thuney who has stepped into that role and will be a really valuable, face and voice and example for that group up front, especially when, you maybe have a question mark next to him at left tackle that he can kind of help, carry some of the load there at that side of the ball. So it's not to say like, like this is a bad reflection on Cole Kmet, but it is interesting. I mean, offensive linemen don't always get recognized in this way. Like if the team captains had come out and said it was Caleb and Cole, would anybody be going, oh, wow, Joe Thuney wasn't a team captain? I mean, maybe it would be a little bit of a surprise, but like it wouldn't be like some stunner. Like we know DJ Moore's not necessarily like the rah-rah leader type. Rome Odunze's young and only his second year. Like he's not necessarily stepping up to a team captain role. So like on offense, it makes sense that like it's some combination of Caleb, Thuney, and Cole Kmet are kind of the big three there. And I would imagine if they repeat weekly captains, Kmet might get it more than a couple of times over the course of this upcoming season, at least on offense, being able to be that potential sixth guy. But similar conversation on defense, where when you think about voices and leaders of this Bears defense, I mean, Jaylon Johnson, not a team captain. I bet some of that can just be like when you miss literally all of training camp in the preseason, you're not out there on the field with your guys. Like you can still be a leader from the sideline in the locker room, and that certainly doesn't stop him from being a team captain, but it probably doesn't help, just not that they think less of him, but just he's just out of sight, out of mind a little bit more. Like when you've been on the field with these guys for a month and a half, you sort of you gravitate towards the guys who've actually been able to be out there with you. And so it's a little bit harder to lead from the sidelines in that regard. So I understand Jaylon Johnson maybe not being one of those team captains, but a little surprised, neither one of your linebackers, Tremaine Edmonds, TJ Edwards, two fairly vocal guys, at least they're not like loud, but like certainly faces and voices of the defense over the last couple of seasons, kind of, two of the higher paid premier players. And I think it says a lot that Grady Jarrett and Joe Thuney as well can come in to a brand new locker room and endear themselves quickly enough to their teammates to say, we're all going to vote you as a team captain. The coaching staff did not pick team captains. The team voted, the players voted on team captains. So like, this isn't just like Ben Johnson and Dennis Allen decreeing that, hey, we are going to pick our guys. We brought these guys and these are going to be our guys, are going to be team captains here. But it strikes me a lot that these are not, Eberflus guys being team captains. When we think about leadership maybe being a deficiency on this team, maybe it says something that leaders like Edmonds and Edwards and Kmet and Jaylon Johnson that were leaders in the past didn't get voted captain because maybe for whatever reason, maybe none of their fault individually, but for whatever reason, leadership with them as captains wasn't where it needed to be. And so new faces, new voices. And I mean, we should be fair here too. Like Grady Jarrett and Joe Thuney have proven themselves as another higher level caliber of player. I mean, I know Grady Jarrett from an actual like accolades standpoint, he's made 2 Pro Bowls and it's been 4 years since he's made a Pro Bowl. Like, he's maybe not the Grady Jarrett he once was, but I think he certainly has a reputation earned that when he comes in this locker room, he's a different level than everybody else. And same with Joe Thuney on the offensive line, and that there may be a different level than Edmonds or Edwards or Cole Kmet or Jaylon Johnson or whatever. So like, I don't want to read too much into this and say like all of a sudden like I'm not trying to say Cole Kmet or whoever are quote unquote bad leaders or whatever, but I think it just says something that new guys who are renowned leaders come in and very quickly take that over in the locker room and push them in a new direction in that way. Even Kevin Byard was someone who only came in just last year and quickly endeared himself as a leadership person in this locker room, but somebody who, a lot of the other young guys, Cole Kmet's only known the Bears organization, or Jaquan Brisker's only known how the Bears have done it. Jervon Dexter's only known how the Bears have done it. Like, it's kind of nice to have some of these veterans that have seen what real better leadership and success looks like on other teams and have them be setting the example for this Bears team. So we'll see how the rotating captain changes over time. Well, I'm sure we'll see Edmonds and Edwards and Kmet and probably DJ Moore and probably Drew Dahlman and Montez Sweat and Jaylon Johnson and Jaquan Brisker, Kyler Gordon, like all those guys will rotate through, but these 5 are very clearly the premier of the leadership there. And Cairo Santos has been around a while. I mean, special teams are special teams. I don't have to read too much into that one. So Some real important Chicago Bears updates ahead of week 1 on the podcast today. On tomorrow's podcast, we're going to really get to know the Bears week 1 opponents because it'll be crossover Thursday. We'll be joined by Luke Braun from Locked On Vikings to find out what we can expect from J.J. McCarthy in week 1, how Brian Flores' defense might look a little bit different this season, and how that all is going to play into Monday Night Football. So make sure you hit the subscribe button to the Locked On Bears, whether it's on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, because that's going to be the best way to keep up with all of our daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. If you're looking for a second listen today, go find another Locked On Podcast Network podcast for any of your other favorite teams. We've got all your NBA, MLB, and NHL teams covered every single day, plus college sports podcasts for over 100 shows across the country. So we most likely have, if you're a fan of any kind of major college sports program, we should have a Locked On podcast for you to make your second listen today. Coming back tomorrow, make Locked On Bears your first listen once again for another opportunity to bear down.